Good morning, my name is Simone Panigada. I am the president of Thetis Research Institute, a small NGO based in Milan, Italy, aimed at conservation of marine mammals in the Mediterranean Sea. And I chair the scientific committee of ACOBAMS, the International Agreement on Conservation of Cetaceans of the Black Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean contiguous. Today I will be talking about the political process behind the protected areas implementation, how we can identify key steps and how they can be used to promote conservation, ecosystem-based model in the policy-making process. I will go through a series of agreements and international frameworks that lead to increasing the percentage of protected areas and the protected component of the environment, starting with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG, and in particular the Goal 14, which is the one that mostly concerns the marine environment, the European Union directives, the Habitat Directive and the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, the Barcelona Convention with the ecosystem approach process, the CBD with the Aichi targets and in particular the Aichi Target 11, the Convention on Migratory Species with the agreement ACOBAMS, which is the one that regards the Mediterranean and the Black Seas. Then we will move to the UN and the Food and Agriculture Organization, and in particular the GFCM, General Fishery Commission for the Mediterranean, and how fisheries are managed within the Mediterranean. And we will end with a case study, which is the Pelagos Agreement, and how the Pelagos Agreement was identified and what kind of conservation issues we have within the Pelagos Agreement. The SDG are a call for action by all countries to promote prosperity while protecting the planet. They recognize that ending poverty must go hand in hand with strategies that build economic growth and address a range of social needs, including education, health, social protection, and job opportunities, while tackling climate change and environmental protection. And this is the part that mostly concerns us. Climate change and environmental protection are within the main actions of the United Nations. What really regards us is Goal 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources. The world's oceans, their temperature, chemistry, currents, and life drive global system that makes the Earth habitable for humankind. Rainwater, drinking water, weather, climate, coastline, much of our food, and even the oxygen in the air we breathe are all ultimately provided and regulated by the sea. Throughout history, oceans and seas have been vital conduits for trade and transportation. Therefore, careful management of these essential global resources is a key feature of a sustainable future. This is a brief description of the oceans and a few numbers and statistical information about the oceans. They cover 3/4 of the Earth's surface, contain 97% of the Earth's water, and represent 99% of the living space on the planet by volume. Over 3 billion people depend on marine and coastal biodiversity for their livelihoods. The market value of marine and coastal resources and industries is estimated at 3 trillion per year, about 5% of the GDP. And you can read through these and get a few numbers and information on how the ocean is vital and crucial for pretty much everyone on the Earth. The Goal 14 is divided in several items. We go from 14.1 to 14.7. And the most important for us is 14.5, which says that by 2020, we need to invest effort, energy, money, whatever we need to achieve the goal to conserve at least 10% of coastal and marine areas, consistent with national and international law and based on the best available scientific information. And this is on the agenda of the UN on a regular meeting held at the New York headquarters. So it really provides an indication on how this important is and how crucial it is to follow these indications by the UN. Moving from the United Nations to Europe, we have the Habitat Directive, a European Union directive which was adopted in 1992 as a EU response to the Berne Convention. It's one of the two directives in relation to wildlife and nature conservation, together with the Bird Directive. It is one of the European nature's policies that establishes one organized network, which is called the Natura 2000, which intends to protect nature and wildlife. The Habitat Directive requires national governments to specify areas that are expected to be ensuring the conservation of flora and fauna species. And it is all related to the Natura 2000 network. It aims to protect about 220 habitats and approximately 1,000 species listed in the different annexes of the directive. Annex 1, for example, covers habitats. Annex 2 covers species require designation of spatial areas of conservation. Annex 4, species in need of strict protection. And Annex 5, species whose taking from the wild can be restricted by European law. The directive led to the setting of a network of spatial areas of conservation, which, together with existing spatial protection areas, form the Natura 2000. And this is described in the Article 7 of the agreement, which requires every state to report on the state of their protected areas every 6 years. This is a map, Natura 2000 viewer. You can see all the different countries in Europe with the Natura 2000 area. By clicking, you can reach information and more details on every area. The MSFD, Marine Strategy Framework Directive, is a more recent directive. It was adopted in June 2008, and its goal is to achieve a good environmental status of the EU marine waters by 2020 and to protect the resource base upon which marine-related economic and social activities depend. These constitute a vital environment component of the Union's future maritime policy, and every member state has to report on a regular basis on the implementation of this. The marine strategy establishes European marine regions on the basis of geographical and environmental criteria, and every member state needs to develop strategies for their marine waters and how to protect them and to make sure that the favorable status is maintained and achieved. The marine strategy is to be developed by each member state and must contain a detailed assessment of the state of the environment and provide clear environmental targets and monitoring programs to make sure that the good environmental status again is maintained and reached when not there. Each member state must draw up a program of cost-effective measures, and prior to any new measure, they need to do an impact assessment to see how the situation is and how they can improve it. When they cannot reach the environmental targets, specific measures tailored to the particular context of the area and situations will be drawn up. So there is a possibility to work on finding solutions to improve the situation for every member state. And this is a region with the different areas, marine and land-based, under the framework of this directive. Moving away from the UN and from the European Commission, we move to the Convention of Biological Diversity, CBD. This was signed in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 by 150 government leaders. The convention is dedicated to promoting sustainable development, conceived as a practical tool for translating the principles of Agenda 21 into reality The Convention recognizes that biological diversity is about more than plants, animals, and microorganisms and their ecosystem. It's about people and our need for food security, medicine, fresh air and water, shelter, and a clean and healthy environment in which to live. So again, an international agreement which aims at protecting our planet. Target 11 of the Aichi target, it's really important. It mainly works with the strategic goal C to improve the status of biodiversity by safeguarding ecosystem, species, and genetic diversity. And the target 11 specifically states by 2020, at least 17% of terrestrial and inland waters area and 10% of coastal and marine areas, especially areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem services, are conserved through effectively and equitably managed, ecologically representative and well-connected systems of protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures, and integrated into the wider landscape and seascape. The milestones for this target are included in the program of work on protected areas and are by 2012 in the marine area, a global network of comprehensive, representative and effectively managed national and regional protected system is established. Again, by 2012, all protected areas are efficiently and equitably managed. And by 2015, all protected areas and protected area systems are integrated into the wider land and seascape and relevant sectors by using the ecosystem approach. You can easily imagine that we are way beyond this. We haven't reached this goal, and we need to really improve our effort in order to meet the 2020 target, which is very close. It's less than a few months from now. This is the percentage of what we have achieved. And as you can see, exceeding target in blue is 0%. Meeting target is only 3% at the global status. And we have a 27% insufficient rate, 24% no change. So we really need to start working on this before it's too late. On the right, you can see a map with the different implementation processes, and by zooming and clicking on the different states, we can receive more information and more details. The European Union, it's clearly under the insufficient rate, meaning that we need to take action soon. Another convention, which is an international one, it's the CMS, Convention on Migratory Species. This was signed in Bonn, Germany, and is operating since 1983. As an environmental treaty under the United Nations, CMS provides a global platform for the conservation and sustainable use of migratory animals and their habitats. CMS brings together the states through which migratory animals pass, range states, and lays the legal foundation for international coordinated conservation measures throughout a migratory range. Currently, we have 113 contracting parties, and CMS allows specific agreements, and one of these is ACOBAMS. ACOBAMS is the agreement on the conservation of cetaceans of the Black Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and contiguous Atlantic area. Here you see in blue the area covered by the agreement, and in dashed lines the area of the wider Atlantic waters which we are implementing right now. In dark yellow you see the countries that ratified. Almost all the countries bordering the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, apart from Russia and Israel, have ratified the agreement. The agreement was adopted in 1996 and entered into force in 2001. As we said, is established under the UNEP CMS, and its purpose is to reduce threats to cetaceans, in particular by improving our knowledge on these animals. And this is one of the regional instruments to promote cooperation between riparian countries. The commitments of the parties are to implement a detailed conservation plan to achieve and maintain a favorable conservation status for cetaceans. This commitment combines total protection of threatened species with stronger habitat protection, and different tools can be used, legislative measures, assessment and management of interactions, habitat protection, research and monitoring, capacity building, information, training, education, and responses to emergency situations. The threats that are threatening marine mammals are accidental capture in fishing gears, depredation, acoustic disturbance, collision with ships, pollution, whale watching, and these are all direct human disturbance. Moving to the next agreement, it's the Barcelona Convention for the Protection of the Marine Environment and the Coastal Region, adopted in 1995. In 1975, 16 Mediterranean countries and the European Community adopted the Mediterranean Action Plan, which was the first ever regional SEAS program under the UNEP, United Nations Environmental Programme umbrella. In 1995, the Action Plan for the Protection of the Marine Environment and the Sustainable Development of the Coastal Areas of the Mediterranean was adopted by the contracting parties. Today, the Barcelona Convention and the Mediterranean Action Plan are more active than ever. The contracting parties are now 22, and they are determined to protect the Mediterranean marine and coastal environment while boosting regional and national plans to achieve sustainable development. As you see, there are really several international framework and bodies who aim to protect the environment, the oceans, the coastal area, and who want to improve the surface of waters that actually are under some regime of conservation and protection. The Convention, the Barcelona Convention, main objectives are to assess and control marine pollution, to ensure sustainable management of natural marine and coastal resources, to integrate the environment in social and economical development, to protect the marine environment and coastal zones, to prevention and reduction of pollution. Natural and cultural heritage has to be protected as well, to strengthen solidarity among Mediterranean coastal states, and to contribute to the improvement of the quality of life. Very ambitious goal, but if we do it together with all the countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea, there is a hope to reach these goals. The Barcelona Convention has given rise to 7 protocols, and these are the dumping protocols, prevention and emergency protocol, land-based sources and activities protocol, spatially protected areas and biological diversity protocol, which is what we are particularly sensible to, offshore protocol, hazardous waste protocol, and the protocol on integrated coastal zone management, known as ICSM. The ecosystem approach under the Barcelona Convention was adopted in January 2008 in Spain, is the guiding principle to Mediterranean Action Plan program of work and all policy implementation and development undertaken under the auspices of UNEP MAP, Barcelona Convention, again with the ultimate objective of achieving the good environmental status. So the environmental status is the same goal that was mentioned earlier on by the European Union Framework Directive. So this is a link to make sure that both North African and European countries have the same goals in terms of conservation of the environment. It has 11 ecological objectives, which are shared with the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and you can have a look at them in the slide, and they are supposed to guide conservation effort to make sure that there is a synergy between the two frameworks to achieve the same goals. The GFCM, General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean Sea, is a regional fishery management organization called RFMO, established under the provision of Article 14 of the Food and Agriculture Organization. The main objectives is to ensure the conservation and the sustainable use at the biological, social, economic, and environmental level of living marine resources. Composed by 24 members, and the membership is open to member and associate member of the organization. It's really to conserve and to control and to regulate fisheries activities within the Mediterranean and Black Seas. The Commission has the authority to adopt binding recommendations for fisheries conservation and management in its area of application and plays a critical role in fisheries governance in the region. The decisions, which are very important for us, adopted in February 2005, is to ban bottom trawling in the whole Mediterranean Sea at depth over 1,000 meters, so to make sure that the bottom area is protected pretty much throughout the entire Mediterranean Sea when the depth exceeds 1,000 meters. And in addition, in 2006, there was the designation of 4 fisheries restricted areas in the Gulf of Lion, of Capo Santa Maria di Leuca, in the Levantine Sea, and in the Nile Delta, to ban every kind of fishing in this area. And this can be seen in this map, which is available on the GFCM webpage. Finally, to conclude with an MPA and how the MPA is working, this is the Pelago Sanctuary for marine mammals, a vast area, about 90,000 square kilometers, established in the center of the Mediterranean Sea. It's a vast area in a portion of the northwestern Mediterranean Sea comprised between France, Monaco, and Sardinia, and encompassing the Corsica and Tuscan archipelago. This is the road that led to the establishment of the sanctuary. As you can see, it was almost a 20 years program. It started in 1990s with the threats, and then through several actions and several steps, it finally came into force in 2002. So it's a very long process, but you can read the different steps that brought to the establishment of the sanctuary. The fundamental importance of the regional framework, with the inscription of the sanctuary in the list of SPAMI, 21 and now 22 Mediterranean states that are party to the SPA protocol of the Barcelona Convention are bound by the provision of the sanctuary agreement, which is very important. It's not a local NPA, it's a Mediterranean NPA. In practice, this has meant the extension to the Mediterranean high seas of a conservation regime, which is of course very, very crucial for the good working and functioning of such a large MPA. The fin whale is a pelagic, widely distributed, highly mobile species. It's a genetically isolated population, and it's the key animal in the Pelago Sanctuary. The threats are marine traffic, chemical pollution, seismic exploration, habitat degradation, and climate change. Here we see how the sightings are distributed within the border of the Pelago Sanctuary, and either to the east or to the west beyond the borders. You can see the little black dots are fin whale sightings. This is an aerial survey which was done. In red and yellow you see the areas outside the Pelago Sanctuary and how fin whales are distributed beyond its borders as well. This is a telemetry study. I have presented this in a different slide. Here you see again the movements of the whales we equipped with satellite transmitters within and beyond the Pelago Sanctuary. And this is the EPSA that was adopted under the CBD framework, which includes the Pelago Sanctuary, but moves to the west to include the Gulf of Lion and the Balearic Island. So the question we have is, should we extend the conservation measures beyond the Pelago Sanctuary borders? And I'm sure you understand that the answer is yes. This would extend the spatial protection to cover a larger portion of the species' critical habitat, in this case fin whales. Implement a marine spatial planning scheme whereby human activities impacting on cetaceans can be made to coexist with environmental protection. We can count on the exclusive economic zone by France and ecological protection zone by Italy and Monaco, who make the waters not international but national and under national jurisdiction. Of course, this was strengthened the base for the implementation of the EPSAs under the CBD, which I just presented. And one of the possibilities would be to create a UNESCO biosphere reserve to make sure that the area is properly protected and conserved. Or also a PSSA, particularly sea-sensitive area, under the International Maritime Organization framework. A few references and selected documentation which you can consult to gain more information on the slides I just presented. Thank you very much.